we have a lot to cover. Gauteng appoints the executive. The UK has a new prime minister. So many things happening, and all we're asking ourselves is, will South Africa get it right? Will we be able to progress as a country? Will the economic hub of South Africa, Gauteng, be able to prosper and progress? Now, we all know about the government of national unity that is happening in South Africa. We also know about people calling it a scam, saying it's not a government of national unity, it's a coalition. And we're now starting to see it all unfold. We saw different provinces in the country elect their leaders, their premiers, their MECs. And the one province that had not done so was Gauteng, because Gauteng was a very split province. No political party got over 40% in Gauteng. All of them were under 40%. And as a result of that, Gauteng is a very split province. Now, we all saw the Gauteng Premier come out and say that he's going to announce his cabinet, and he postponed the first time, he postponed the second time, until we finally realized that he kept on postponing. And people were asking questions to say, why all these postponements? Now we know, or we understand at least, what is really going on. And there you have it. Premier Panyaza Lesufi appoints a minority Gauteng cabinet without the DA. Now, the ANC at National has said that they are in coalition with the DA. But now the ANC in Gauteng is saying something else. Okay, I have a few things to say about this. The first thing is that I believe that national government as well as provincial government should be separate. I don't believe that they should be the same thing. I also don't believe that they should be run in the same way. And as a result of that, I think this is the right approach. The first thing that should have happened from the beginning is that they should have never been somebody who is deciding what should happen, and now all provinces and now all municipalities should follow from that somebody who is not understanding the context of the people in that specific area. So when we are now seeing the ANC in Gauteng saying, no, we're not going to do what the ANC National did, we're not going to do what President Cyril Ramaphosa did, we're going to do our own thing. I believe that this is how things should be, but I do not support the ANC. And neither do I support the stances and the things that they do as the ANC. And I'm going to explain to you a little while why I don't and why I believe that things should be done very differently. But maybe let's have a look at what is actually going on and understand the context of what has been happening in Gauteng now. Following weeks of uncertainty negotiations to form a government of national unity, Gauteng Premier Panyaza Lesufi has finally appointed the members of his executive council. It's dominated by ANC, which will be in charge of 7 crucial portfolios, while the IFP, PA, and Rise Mzansi were each allocated 1. This means that in the 80 seats Gauteng provincial legislature, the political parties in government hold only 33 seats, which is far from an outright majority. Now, if you understand politics, if the parties that are now in government in Gauteng only hold 33 seats, it means that they are not the majority. It means that they have not gotten 50+1. It means that Gauteng will be very difficult to govern because they do not have the majority. And as all of you know, if there is no majority, things can change very quickly. And I want to know from you, what are your thoughts about Gauteng? What do you think is going to happen to Gauteng? Now, Gauteng's 7th administration cabinet excludes the DA, which holds 22 seats in the legislature, the EFF, which holds 11, Mkhonto Wesizwe, which holds 8, Action SA 3, Freedom Front Plus 2, and Build 1 South Africa, and the African Democratic Party 1 each. The ANC has 28 seats. Now, if you look at the new people that are MECs, you begin to realize that there is no DA. The DA is not part of this. So how is this a government of national unity if they said that they're going to do it in all 3 provinces, yet we do see, in all 9 provinces, all 3 spheres of government, yet we do see that in Gauteng, things are completely different. Now, the announcement of the executive comes a week after the ANC and DA talks deadlocked and 2 parties failed to reach an agreement to co-govern South Africa's economic hub, which contributes 33% of the country's GDP. Now, Gauteng contributes 33% of South Africa's money. We, as Gauteng, are the economic hub of South Africa, and I could even say Africa. If the economic hub of our nation, this is happening there, it clearly shows you that there is a war, and that war is to govern. And that war seems to be governing or to govern the richest province, or the province that makes or has the most amount of money in our country. Now, there's a lot of things I want to say about this. And there are also other things that I think are a little bit dangerous about what is going on in our country right now. But the most important thing that I want to mention is that it's clear that we've entered coalitions in South Africa. And it's clear that coalitions are going to be a thing for a while in South Africa. We need to start asking the right questions to politicians to say, when I'm voting for you, who are you willing to work with? Who are you not willing to work with? Why? Because after the votes happen, we are now seeing politicians do things that we did not quite expect that they would do. Like, for example, here in Gauteng, we are seeing that things are a little bit different in Gauteng, the different from what the ANC said they would do. And the question then beckons to say, is the ANC working with the DA, or are they not? Or here in Gauteng, why are things changing? Why are things not the same in the way that things function in the country? And these are questions that need answers. And I believe that voters deserve to know answers about these things before actually making the decisions. Now, you might be asking yourself, what is it about Gauteng? What's the backstory? And I want to share some of the things about Gauteng that is important for anybody to understand. Because if you don't understand this, you might actually miss what the war is actually about. Because Gauteng is where the money sits. And the war is over Gauteng. And the reason why they are fighting over Gauteng is because there's been a lot of crimes committed in Gauteng. That's why they're fighting over Gauteng. Gauteng is one of those provinces that when you open up the financial books and you actually check at what has happened in Gauteng, you begin to actually realize that Gauteng is one of the most rotten provinces in our country. Gauteng is where many people will be arrested because of the many crimes that have gone or happened in Gauteng. And that's why there's a fight for Gauteng, reason being they don't want any of these things to come out. If you will remember, there was a story, and I also spoke about this story, in Gauteng of a certain woman who exposed what the ANC was doing in Gauteng, and she was gunned down right here in Gauteng. Here it is, Babita. She was actually killed for the Department of Health in Gauteng. She was gunned down outside of her house for exposing the corruption in Gauteng. So if you look at this thing properly, what's really going on in Gauteng is that they don't want people to know what has actually happened in Gauteng. That's really what the war is about in Gauteng. They don't want to lose Gauteng because they know people will uncover the corruption and what has happened in Gauteng. And as a result of that, they will do anything to make sure that Gauteng does not move hands. And the DA is aware of this, and the DA wants to expose a lot of things. Remember, what's going to be happening in the next couple of years, we're going to see a lot of arrests, because as this government begins to unfold, we're going to see a lot of things that have gone wrong, going to be exposed, and people will be arrested. So that's part of the issue now. Now, we've had Helen Zille weighing in on what is going on in Gauteng, and I want you to listen to what she has to say about Gauteng, because I thought I found it very, very interesting. Take a look at what she says, or what she believes.
The ANC conceded that they had intended to allocate 3 cabinet seats to the DA and keep 7 plus the Premier, that is 8, for themselves. Now, clearly, that would be a violation of the proportionality clause. It would not in any way be proportional, not even wildly. It would not reflect the will of the voters, and it would not reflect inclusiveness. So it was completely out of kilter with clause 16 of the statement of intent. And we said, sorry, 8-3 is not acceptable. Today they did agree to go down from 7 plus the Premier to 6 plus the Premier, which would be 7 out of 11, and give 1 seat to the IFP and keep us at 3. Now, we have no problem at all with the IFP coming in. In fact, the IFP was an initial signatory to the statement of intent, and we believe they should be there in good faith. So we have no problem with that at all. But it is still wildly out of proportion to give the ANC 6+1, the DA 3, which is less than half of what the ANC has got.
Now, I want to talk about something that Helen Zille says here. She says they wanted to give the IFP seats, and she says, I don't have an issue with them giving the IFP seats. And she continues. Now, I want to bring something to your attention. The IFP is a political party that was given money by the Oppenheimers and is funded by white monopoly capital, the same white monopoly capital that funds the DA. And she says they were the initial, or they were there in the initial signings of this government of national unity. I am very concerned about the IFP. When the DA is now making the IFP their friend, I get concerned. And I'll tell you why I get concerned. Because the former leader of the IFP, Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi, who was very, very vocal about not giving away certain things that belong to South Africans to people that are going to abuse South Africans and control South Africans. And we're just sitting at, a few months after he passed on. And you're sort of seeing this cozy relationship between the DA and the IFP forming or being created or I don't know what to call it. I'm concerned. And the reason why I'm concerned is because majority of the voters that vote for the IFP do so because of the IFP stood up with very strong stances against, what had actually been done in South Africa in the past. And now we're seeing a IFP that is, being sort of touted by Helen Zille as, we have no issues with them joining and we're sort of getting concerned here about ideology and the stance that these political parties are taking. And this is my point that I'm still standing with, to say we're hearing this party and that party joining, but we're not hearing what ideas are they agreeing on. And this is the danger, because then we have ministers that come in, they administer the tenders and they give the tenders to their friends and whoever that there is. But the ideology of that political party, we're not hearing what is it that you are standing for. When we should be hearing about government of national unity, we should be hearing about the fact that these political parties are saying, listen, we're coming in and we're saying we're doing 1, 2, 3, and that's what we've agreed on. I mean, let's be honest. Positions don't really matter. These are tenders that they're fighting about. What should be mattering is, what is your stance on education? What is your stance on healthcare? What is your stance? And those should be the things that are creating these governments of national unity that people are speaking about, because that is what actually matters to the people. That's what matters to the voters. And I find that in all these conversations, these things are not coming up. We're sort of just seeing people argue about tenders and argue about who.
Today, let's now welcome on the line political analyst Mr. Thamsanqa Malinga to give us some input on the ANC and DA issues of sharing power here in Gauteng. Thamsanqa, great having you with us. A very good afternoon to you. So the ANC has just responded to the DA regarding that impasse in the appointment of the provincial cabinet. From that, do you think that the issue now has been cleared out in terms of the confusion around, number one, DA saying that issues of proportionality in seat allocation were a bone of contention? Their clauses on the statement of intent at national government, as well as their agreement or deal, specifically on the Gauteng power sharing deal, the ANC there being very adamant that they will continue to engage with other parties and continue with forging ahead the executive representative of the Gauteng people.
Good afternoon, Alicia.
So the DA is basically saying that the reason they entered a government of national unity is because they thought that it was going to transfer into all the other provinces. And Gauteng is saying, no, we're not going to do what we're just told to do at national. We're going to do what we decide to do, or what the constituents lets us know what we should be doing in Gauteng. And we're seeing very, very interesting analogies coming out of here. And I want to know from you, Do you think that leaders at national should make decisions that should affect provinces without any questions being asked? Or do you think that no, they should be separate? The fact that they made an agreement with national does not mean that that agreement should flow in every other area. That agreement should only stand in national. One thing is very certain. There are political parties that are feeling very left out of all the negotiations that are going on. And one of the political party is the EFF, which they have come out to say...
Let's get more reaction then to those developments in Gauteng with the EFF Gauteng chairperson Kulego Dunga, who joins us now for the party's reaction. Kulego, good to have you, and thank you very much for coming on. What is clear is that two things happened. One, the ANC went ahead and made the announcement without the Democratic Alliance, so the DA is not a part of this government. But two, the EFF is not mentioned as a part of the executive, but we hear that there was broad consultation with all the parties, and others would have expressed a desire to be part of other processes in the legislature and head, for example, committees. So give us some clarity then. Firstly, your reaction to the cabinet without the DA, but two, whether you did express desire to be in the committees of the legislature.
No, thank you, Mr. Mdluli. Greetings to you and greetings to the viewers of Newsroom Africa. Yeah, it has been a grueling past 2 to 3 weeks, and we obviously note and appreciate at this point that the mayor has, the premier has really taken it now serious in terms of the composition of the executive, which was necessary because from where we're standing and having reflected obviously on the happenings of the political terrain with the emergence of the grand coalition of the DA and the ANC, was the ultimate preparation of the EFF, particularly in Gauteng, to be an effective opposition. And we are awaiting the announcement by the Premier so that we can really start doing the necessary allocations in terms of committees and hitting the ground running in relation to what...
The EFF is playing a role which I think a lot of times people are a little bit concerned, because the EFF used to be very vocal about a lot of stuff. And now we're seeing that the EFF is sort of becoming a commentator in the political sphere, but a commentator that's not quite saying where they stand, what they believe, and what they are going to do. Now, there's two things here. The EFF is saying that MK party, Jacob Zuma supporters, gave us their voters in the years past. When Jacob Zuma opened up the MK party, those voters that voted for the EFF, they went back and they voted for who? Jacob Zuma, who they believed that they had given the EFF their vote when they were very unhappy about the ANC. Now, the EFF after the elections, it would seem that their stance and their position and the way that they were doing things in the past, it's no longer happening in that way. And there could be a couple of reasons. Let me speak from my standpoint. We stood as Arise South Africa as a political party. I'm the president of Arise South Africa. We got close to 20,000 votes before elections. After elections, every week I'm here explaining how politics works, divulging and explaining my analysis on it and getting your opinion and ensuring that we engage on what is going on politically. I would believe that a political party that is in government should be doing more of this. We are not in government as Arise South Africa, but yet we are having meetings, we are discussing these things, and yet you are seeing me every week. I would believe that political parties that are in government should be discussing these things at an even louder voice than everybody else. Why? Because it cannot be that we only talk about politics in elections, and after elections, we no longer talk about politics. It can't be. We must discuss politics regularly. Why? Because politics is what affects majority of the people's lives. In South Africa, close to 50% of the money that is spent in this country, it comes from politics. It comes from government. So it is, or it beckons that we do discuss politics. Now, there is a clip that I saw of Helen Zille that I thought is very funny, and I want you to watch it.
Questions? Oh, sorry, I've been very sick, so that's why I'm blowing my nose. Okay, was that clear? Was that clear to everybody? It's very technical, so I don't expect you to.
All right, please go ahead.
Cyril from Kaya 959 News.
Questions? Oh, sorry, I've been very sick, so that's why I'm blowing.
Was trending. People were saying that Helen Zille is telling journalists that they are not smart. And, you know, there were a lot of black journalists in the room, and people felt that she was being very rude by saying that it's very technical. She does not expect people to understand. And for me, when I looked at this, I thought, you know, these are tricks that people who have created things that are not supposed to be understood because they didn't come from places where people wanted them to be done, use to try and belittle what people are actually saying. People do understand what this so-called government of national unity is. People do understand the technicalities of what is going on. What people don't understand is, how did this happen? That's what people don't understand. That it's not about the technicalities. It's that people don't understand to say, how are two different political parties, the DA and the ANC, coming together to govern when the principles are so different? That's what people don't understand. So I found it to be very rude, and I found it to be very unacceptable to say she cannot be saying that to people, because it's extremely rude to speak to people like that. Now, many of you know that I spoke about the financial situation of South Africa, and I said the moment I heard that this government of national unity is happening and it's the DA and the ANC, the first thing I did is I opened up a trade. I opened up a trade and I shorted the rand, because everybody was saying, oh, the rand is going to increase, the rand is going to do well, and all these international investors were talking about the rand. And the first thing I did is I shorted the rand. And let me explain why I shorted the rand. Because I understood that this government of national unity is not what the people of South Africa wanted. It is what the investors or the white monopoly capital wanted. And I've come to understand that what we are seeing in South Africa and all over Africa, we saw it with Kenya, is that people are no longer waiting or expecting investors or these billionaires to bully them and do whatever that they want to do. The people themselves are deciding for themselves. So I knew that amongst the ANC, there will be those that will rebel and will do things differently. I knew that this was coming. So what Panyaza Lesufi has done in Gauteng, I knew that this was coming. But also I knew that this government of national unity won't hold water, because it's not what leaders have agreed on. It's what the funders have agreed on. And the times where funders just dictate what should happen are coming to an end, because people are saying we want to make our own choices these days. So I knew that this wouldn't wait, and I opened up a trade, and as I did open up a trade, I'm sitting on very good profit. And somebody said to me, but how did you do this? And I said, one of the things you learn about trading is that the political situation will always determine how currencies move. And as a result of that, if you understand that basis principle alone, you are able to make money. So a lot of people said, President, we want you to be teaching us these things. And I said, I will do so. And I've opened up a page called The Best Finance Show, where I teach you how to make the right financial decisions. So as you can see, remember when all this politics was happening, people said the rand is going to 17 rand. That's where the rand is. And we saw the rand going to 7 rand. I knew that was not going to last. And the rand is now on 1824. It has been going over. It has been going to 1860. It peaked at 1860. My trade is still open, but I believe the rand is even going to go to 19 rand. Why? Because the government of national unity is a dishonest thing. And one thing I've known and learned about life is that things that are dishonest cannot last very long. So if you want to know more about this, because here we discuss politics, but if you want to know more about this, make sure that you follow The Best Finance Show. And I did my first episode there 6 days back. It's got 87 views, and I'm going to be doing more episodes where we talk about these things, and I'm able to show you and explain how these things work. So make sure that you give that page a follow. But the one thing that we are seeing is that the world is changing. In the UK, they had elections. And in those elections in the UK, the results that came out were very very, very interesting. They were not what people expected. The current was taken out. Labour's landslide victory is a personal triumph for Keir that once seemed impossible. Here he is. You're seeing the Labour Party's at 410, Conservative 131. And things have changed. The Labour Party's resounding victory in the UK general election marks a historic moment in modern British political history and a huge personal triumph for Keir, the Labour leader who became the country's next Prime Minister. Stammer's victory with a 3-figure majority in Parliament is all the more remarkable considering the journey that Labour has been on since the last general elections in 2019. Then the party suffered its worst loss in a generation under former leader Jeremy, who stood on a hard left platform. A path back to credibility and even being competitive in a general election looked potentially a decade off as the Conservatives emerged triumphant from the carnage of the Brexit under the charismatic leader of Boris Johnson. And really what I'm trying to say here is that the world is changing. Yes, South Africa, we didn't get a new government completely. But the world is changing. Elections are happening. Leaders are changing. Ideas are changing. It's not only in South Africa where we're seeing things change. The world is changing. And I believe that the world is changing because people are tired. They are tired of having their politics run by a class of billionaires that control everything and want to ensure that they're in charge of everything and simply do not care about what people are going through or feeling on the ground. So the world really is tired. I mean, we have got so many issues that exist in the world today that leaders are just not dealing with. And, I had an interview with an educator on my For This Reason podcast. So if you are not yet subscribed to the best podcast in the country, make sure that you subscribe. So I had an interview with an engineer who's now an educator, and he's a young man who's doing very well. And, he married young, and he was really explaining to say there are lots of issues that people are going through in the world. And some of these issues stem from the fact that there is no leadership potential in the world. So make sure that you pay this specific podcast a visit and you listen to this podcast. He really shared some very profound stuff on, raising your child right, understanding what we should be doing as citizens, what educators should be focusing on and what should be happening. So make sure that you pay this podcast a listen. But we're seeing it all around the world. People are tired. They want change. Labour's Keir to become UK's Prime Minister. He's set to be the Prime Minister of the UK, the Labour Party's Prime Minister since 2010 after his party's landslide general election victory. Labour is returning to power with a huge parliamentary majority of 174 following a collapse in the support for the Conservatives. Keir will be formally appointed by the King, the Buckingham Palace, later replacing Tory Rishi, and make his speech in Downing Street. So in the UK, as you know, they still allow, or the monarch basically confirms or allows who should rule in that land. And I've heard this conversation about South Africa where people are saying that in South Africa they would want a similar thing, or they would want the royals being more involved in politics. But I wanted to come to you today and leave you with this thought to say, with the world changing as much as it's changing, politics is changing, people are changing, leaders are changing, the world is changing. I wanted to leave you with a thought to say, is it not important that you as an individual should also be changing? And I have now started a vlog where I bring you in to what I'm working on, how it's going, and what's really going on. And in this week in my vlog, I talk about AI. And one of the things I've realized about change is that change is uncertain, change is crafty, change is different, but change does happen. And really in my vlog, I'm explaining what it is that I'm thinking and what I'm doing and how it's working. And in this week's vlog, I speak about master AI and machine learning in 2024. Future-proof your career. And what I speak about in this week's vlog, and if you have been watching the vlog, I'm sure you'd be enjoying it. But I really speak about the fact that with so much change happening in the world, the worst thing anybody can do is to try and remain the same. Political spheres are changing. Politics is changing. Here in South Africa, we're now talking coalitions. Everywhere around the world, things are changing. AI is coming in. A lot of industries are changing. The worst thing that you could do is sit back and not change. And that's why it's important for you to begin to understand AI, use AI, and position yourself as the best in AI. One of the things that I've always said to people is that whenever there were industrial changes happening in the world, Africa always used to be last. Why? Because it took us time to get access to things. The aeroplane took 7 years before the aeroplane landed in Africa. You look at computers. It took close to 7 years before the first computer landed in our country. So many things take so long. But when it comes to AI, you, an American, a UK person, a Nigerian, all have access to the internet at the same time. Yes, we might not have the computer chips and whatever, but we've all got access to this thing called the internet. Why not change your skills and master them to ensure that you receive or you become the leader in that industry? And basically, I share my journey of what I'm doing and what I've realized that, there are people that don't adopt to technology. And I said to the team that I was speaking to in the vlog, I said to them that when I started cryptocurrency many years back, and I was getting involved in the fourth industrial revolution, getting involved in tech, I had people that were saying, this technology thing won't last. I even had somebody who said to me one day, they said, do you know that I don't have a bank card? I said, what do you mean? They said, if I want money, I keep it in my own home in cash because I don't believe in this digital thing. And that was many years back. I think that was around 2012, 2013. And now when we look back, we begin to realize that this digital revolution that people said it's going to slow down, it's going to stop, it's not slowing down. It's in fact picking up at an even faster rate than has ever existed before. So you must equip yourself, you must prepare yourself, you must upgrade yourself. What content are you watching? What are you listening to? Are you taking in information that is helping you grow as an individual? Because yes, it's good for you to watch whatever you watch on Netflix and whatever the case is, but it's also good for you to upgrade the knowledge that you've got. We're seeing politics change. We're seeing the world change. What are you doing to change? And I want to leave you with that thought to say, what is it that you are learning that's going to help you change? And if you are not learning anything, get involved. I mean, I've shared with you all these amazing channels that I've been able to set up to ensure that I want to teach as many people for free, by the way. All of this content I'm talking about, you're getting it for free. What am I doing? I'm saying I want to teach South Africans in the globe on how they can be their best in the different industries that they are in, but also educate them on how they can be active citizens and get involved in politics and understand how to do things properly for free, in the hope that by me doing this, when we do come to the next elections that are coming up, you will see the value that I would have given you. And you would say, this is somebody who truly has a heart to upgrade and improve the status of South Africans and Africa at large. And if you don't, I'll be happy because I would have helped you achieve something. But if you do, then I'm able to scale these things to an even bigger level, because these were the ideas that I was going to implement had I been voted into government. These were the ideas that we spoke about. This was part of the manifesto of Arise South Africa. So the fact that I'm not in government does not mean I'm not able to do so. I'm still able to do so even as I prepare for 2026, because Arise South Africa, we will be in local elections coming up in 2026. But from myself, thank you so much for joining me, and I will see you soon when the next story breaks so that I can come and explain it, help you understand it, and help you navigate this world that we live in today. From myself, thank you.